Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Welcome to the Author to Author podcast. I am your host, Pamela R Haynes, award-winning author of 2 books called Loving the Brothers and Loving the Sisters. I interview independently published and traditionally published authors from around the globe. The Author to Author podcast is available on 20 streaming platforms and 6 radio stations, namely East London Radio Mixcloud, Pam Tango Radio, UK246.com, Chalk Hill Community Radio, LWR Talk Radio, and The Sounds of My Life radio stations. This podcast is sponsored by Dalgety Herbal Teas. Use the discount code A2AS6 for 10% off your next Dalgety tea order. In this week's episode, I interviewed one of my sheroes. She is a prolific writer and an award-winning author of 4 books. Let's fly across the Atlantic Ocean and jump into her interview now. See you on the other side. Hello and good morning, Callie. How are you?
Morning, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Author to Author podcast today. We've been trying to set up this meeting for a while now, but I'm glad to be finally speaking to you.
Same here. Same here.
So tell me, what was crop over like?
Well, I don't know if the people who are listening know exactly what crop over is, but it is our annual festival that celebrates the end of the sugarcane crop. I remember once seeing online somebody saying that it was the end of our pineapple crop.
Oh
So
dear.
we don't have a we don't have a pineapple crop. So that's basically what it is to celebrate, all the hard work and everything that was put into creating the sugar crop, including the processing, refining, everything. There is a ceremonial last canes delivery, which the prime minister usually goes to. But then there's also lots of parties, there's lots of food, there's lots of just spectacle, like events and that type of thing. There are museum exhibits. And then at the end, it all comes down to this really big Grand Kadooment parade. So yeah, it was good from everything that, obviously, from what I've seen, it was good. So yeah, everybody had a great time.
That's fantastic. Did you actually play mass? Did you take part in the parade?
No, I don't. It's never been my thing, but I do enjoy the music, because a lot of the local artists, they always bring out new music for the season. So that's always great. So I did really like some of the songs. I really liked Brain Freeze by Lead Pipe Industry. I think that was one of the better songs. I also enjoyed Fine Wine by Alison Hayes. That was a really good one. I know she's a big deal up there. So,
Yes, some of my listeners may be familiar with her, but who won Road March this year?
it's funny. I did not check. I'm not sure who won Road March, but may have very well been Brain Freeze because Brain Freeze was the big song this year. It may have been, but I'd have to check.
Okay, no problem. So, if my listeners haven't gathered yet, I'm talking to Callie Browning, who hails from Barbados. But, Callie, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from on the island? What schools did you go to, etc.?
Well, I am from the St. Michael area. So, I had a very, let me see, I guess a typical Barbadian childhood. I used to walk to school. I used to go to my grandmother's house and pick fruit on weekends. What else? We would go to the beach. We would make shapes in the sand and learn how to swim on our own. Just usual, I think, Barbadian childhood.
That sounds idyllic. And in terms of your
Yeah, it's really
education,
nice.
where did you go to school?
Well, I have done a lot of online courses, so that's really the bulk of where I've done my more formal education.
And have you travelled outside of Barbados and gone to other places? 'Cause I know you like travelling.
Yes, I have traveled. I've traveled throughout the region, through North and Central America, to Europe as well. I'm always interested to, every now and again I do meet some Bajans when I'm overseas, and I always find that to be fantastic. Just to have a place in such a small island on this planet and to be able to meet people who, know what the place is like, know what the food is like. It's some really weird, far-flung places. So I've always found that to be amazing whenever I meet other Bajans overseas.
I mean, that's great. You were here earlier in the year. How did you find
Yes.
London?
I had one of the best trips ever when I was in London. It was absolutely amazing. I did walked around the city and did some tours. I hung out with a friend of mine. What else did we do? We saw West End show. It was really, really good. We had an amazing time.
Oh, thank you for that. And I'm glad to hear that you had a good time while you were here. In terms of travel in the future, do you have plans to go anywhere else?
Only this morning I was thinking about it, but I'm not sure just yet. I mean, I'm hoping that by the end of the month I'll have solidified those plans.
And if money was no object, where would you like to travel to?
Mm, Probably want to go someplace I never went before. Maybe actually, you know what? Maybe Rwanda, I think.
I've heard that it's very beautiful there. I've interviewed somebody who's coming up in this season who
Hmm.
does retreats in Rwanda. So perhaps I can connect you
Maybe.
both. But I've heard it's a really beautiful place to
I
visit
have
and
heard
go
that
to.
too. Yeah, I have heard that as well, and I've done some research, and I think that may be one of the next, well, not next, but hopefully soon. So yeah, connect us. I'd love to find out more about their Rwandan retreats.
When did you start writing?
I started writing. Oh boy, this is a long answer. I started writing maybe. Well, I think I always liked to write when I was small, but in terms of my adulthood and writing, that more really started maybe about maybe 9 years ago, and I started doing more short stories and or just I think and like really micro fiction, just little things that I thought about and came up with, and eventually I just kept doing it and doing it and doing it until I eventually had a whole book.
What's the name of the first book that you wrote?
The name of the first book that well, it was a novella, and it was called um, The Shadow Guardian. But that one I eventually unpublished, and because I felt like it wasn't exactly me. But then
Right.
my first full length book was The Girl with the Hazel Eyes.
And when did that book come out?
That came out in 2019.
Can you tell us what a little bit about what that book is about?
Sure. So that book is about Barbados's independence story, and it focuses on, well, you really meet this older lady, and she's grown and everything, and she wants to tell her life story. So she summons a young writer from Barbados to the US, where she's been in exile for nearly 50 years, to write her story. And as the young girl starts to unravel everything, the woman tells her she realizes there's some holes missing. There's some holes in her story. And, eventually she realizes that the old lady has a secret.
Okay, we don't want to talk out the whole thing, but it does
Yeah,
sound
no.
intriguing. So,
Thank
was it
you.
this book that got picked up by Oprah's book club?
Well, not Oprah's book club, but Oprah magazine. So Oprah, well, now it's called Oprah Daily, but at the time it was Oprah magazine in 2020. So what they do is like for Pride Month, or like Black History Month, or times where they want to focus on literature in particular, they would pick like their definitive guide for books that you should read for these particular times. And they chose my book as one of the 16 Caribbean books that you need to add to your reading list.
Oh, that was fantastic, Callie. How did that make you feel when you
Thank
found
you.
out?
I literally did not sleep that night. It was so amazing to be chosen, especially because on the list, I am one, the only Barbadian. I am two, the only self-published author on the list. So it was really amazing to be among that crowd, especially because there were some real heavy hitters, some massive names in Caribbean literature on that list as well. And to be considered to be good enough to be in their company was it was incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And congratulations to you. After
Thank
that book
you.
was published, what was next? What book came next?
Well, next up was the follow up to that because it's a duology. But up next was the Vanishing Girls, which also focuses on, well, I kind of take real life things that happened in Barbados and I, make my characters and put them into the situation and, change it up a little. So that was the Vanishing Girls. That came next in 2021. Then in at the end of 2021, I was approached by someone to have my one of my stories featured in an anthology that was published by Penguin Random House's crime division, which is called Crooked Lane. So that came out at the end of 2021 in November. And it's all writers of color. So there's some Asians, there's some Latinx authors as well, African American. And then again, I was still the only Barbadian, the only Caribbean person in the anthology. So
Oh,
that's done really
that's
well. Mm,
absolutely. I mean, that's fantastic. That's fantastic
thank
news. But
you.
can we go back to The Vanishing
Mhm.
Girls? Because I think
Sure.
it's the first book that I've read that does it take place in a funeral home?
Yes, it does.
Yes, yes, it's coming back to me now. It's the very first book
Mhm.
I've read that's crime fiction and set in a
Mhm.
funeral home. Where do you get your ideas from?
Mhm.
Who and what inspires you?
I, people ask me that all the time, and I'm not even sure. Like sometimes I just have these really kooky ideas, and they feel like they come from out of nowhere. But I actually started writing the male character first, the male protagonist first. And there was just something about him, like as I wrote him, because it was supposed to be a very different story at first. But as I wrote him, I just really felt like I just felt like he had a very interesting life story. And I felt like he was somebody who was raised in a very somber place and he might be misunderstood and that type of thing. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like he just strikes me as someone who was raised in a funeral home. That was my thought. And I just went with it.
I was gripped from the first page in terms of reading that.
Thank you.
But what I didn't know that it was based around real life events. So I
Mm-hmm.
take it the women going missing is the real life event that happened in Barbados. Am I correct?
Yes, it was called the Canefield Murders, and it was the only time we've ever had a serial killer in the late 70s and early 80s.
Oh, wow, wow. And you're able to tie
Yeah.
that into a fictional story. But tell me, do you use real places in Barbados?
I'm inspired by real places. I don't really necessarily call them by name, but the thing is, a lot of people who are Barbadian, they do always tell me that they can identify the places, even though I've given them completely different names. They can always identify them based on the descriptions that I give them. So, like for example, there's one place called Buckworth Street, which is where the funeral home is set, and a lot of people said to me, "This is Robot Street, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes."
Okay, okay, because yes, there was a few places like Baxter's Road,
Mm-hmm.
Nelson Street, very town places that I thought,
Mm-hmm.
wonder if that's the place or not. So it's very,
Yeah.
very cleverly done. So congratulations on the second book. And unfortunately,
Thank
I
you.
think I read the second book first, and then I read The Girl with the Hazel Eyes,
Mm-hmm.
because right at the beginning you make reference to you actually name the girl with the hazel eyes in Vanishing Girls. and
Hmm.
I thought, oh, okay, the books must be connected in some way. Was that always the plan to write the story over two books?
I, you know what? Every time anyone asks me this, I always feel a little, a little silly because I did not have any plan at all. So, like, even when I wrote Hazel Eyes, it was just me writing, it really was just there for the joy of it. And then one day out of the blue, I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm gonna publish this book. And literally between making that decision and publishing it, it took about 10 days. And the longest part of that was waiting for the book cover to come back from the designer. So, I haven't had a career that is meticulously planned. Is I've just gotten, I don't know, I've just gotten creative. I've just started to write. I just normally have left these things there one side until, I don't know, something told me just do it, just out of the blue.
Okay, and that's okay too. It doesn't everything doesn't have to be scripted and mapped out.
Yeah,
You can go with the flow. But I did want to say that the book covers are lush, and I'm actually looking at a copy now of your latest book, which is called The Secrets of Catsbraddle Village.
that's Battle
Um,
Village. Hmm.
I mean, the book cover is absolutely stunning. Who designed
Thank
that for
you.
you?
Well, the first two were designed by a company called Ebook Launch, and the third one was designed by a company called the Monza. They have some really great designers, both of them, and I feel like they do listen very carefully to what it is I want. I mean, I write some really, I don't know, they feel like they're long briefs, but they're like 2 pages long where I tell them, things I really want to include on the cover, things that I don't. I send them pictures of other covers I like for inspiration. And I just feel like they do listen and they do care, but it's very much a collaborative effort. So they have always been able to take my vision and, bring it to life. And that's amazing.
They have done very, very well. The colors are so vivid, and it looks like almost every tropical
Mhm.
flower is represented here. So absolutely beautiful. And I like the way
Mhm.
that it goes over to the back cover as well. So
Mhm.
very, very well done. But tell us about the secrets of Catspaddle Village. What's that book about?
Well, over the years, I have written, as I mentioned before, I've written some short stories. So it's kind of funny because every single short story I've written outside of every single short story I've written has somehow or the other managed to like be longlisted or shortlisted or won something. And I thought to myself, you know what, I'd love to just put all these together. And, so the beautiful thing about that book is that it's almost like when I put it out, I already knew that the stuff in there was of a certain quality because they had all won something or been long or shortlisted for something. So that was why. So, and then too, like, I realized, like, I asked myself, what was the theme of this particular set of short stories? Because I just feel like they have to tie together. And I realized I tend to have a habit of setting my short stories in these really small, intimate villages. So I decided to name it Cat Spraddle Village. Cat Spraddle because, when things go cat spraddle, then they go wrong. There is some chaos. Everybody has like their own chaos, but in the end, it always works out. So that's just great, I think, for me.
Yes, I've read the book and I was intrigued by the short stories there. I mean, you've entered a lot of competitions, or your books have been
Hmm.
entered into lots of competitions.
Hmm.
Was that a deliberate move on your part to do so? And what has been the benefit of being longlisted, shortlisted, and winning awards?
The thing is, I mean, it's always great to actually win because then, there's sometimes cash or you get to, it's something that you get to have on your resume. But at the same time, some of them I wrote and they had won things even before I started my public writing career. So some of them are older than even Hazel Eyes. But the benefit of it, I think, at the time when I first started entering, like I said before Hazel Eyes, was that I felt like I just wanted feedback of some sort on what I was writing. And I thought competitions were as good an avenue as any. So I did that. Later on, as time went by, I don't know, I guess I just got more emboldened and I guess it just seemed like a great way to, I don't know, to just kind of keep myself relevant. There was one microfiction competition which I entered. It was a 10-word competition. And that one I actually won like $10,000 in prizes. And that's why I actually worked with the Monsters to do the cover for Cat's Battle Village, because I had won the cover design prize. So that was one of the packages that I got inside the $10,000 suite of prizes. So yeah, that's one of the benefits in entering competitions, that it can really help you along your writing journey if you win great stuff like that.
I really like what you're saying because it's really lovely to have feedback from judges in the region and judges
Mm-hmm.
overseas. Even if you don't win,
Mm-hmm.
they will provide you with feedback on your work. Yeah, it adds a bit of
Mm-hmm.
kudos to what you do, as you say, as
Mm-hmm.
a writer, and the benefits of winning, prize money to fund other projects and your other
Mm-hmm.
writing. I think is absolutely fantastic. But tell me about the role of the Cultural Foundation in Barbados. How have they been able to support you with your work?
They have actually been great to me so far. So how have they helped me? They have helped me in a few different ways. One of the first things they did last year was I was invited to a retreat in Europe to do some writing. And I thought to myself, okay, well, that sounds great. And the person literally said to me, I didn't ask, I didn't say money was an issue or anything. They just said to me, don't worry, I've reached out to your cultural ministry and they're going to help. I was like, huh?
Right, that's
And
wonderful.
yeah, so the NCF did send me to a retreat overseas to hone my writing and to do some networking with some really big names in British publishing. So that was amazing. They have also sponsored that, honestly, they do so much great work. They do so much great work. They had a free course which they had opened up for Barbadians about voice acting for audiobooks. So I went to that because I was looking at the time to release Cat's Battle Village and I always wanted to do an audiobook. So they had people in there giving us one-on-one feedback, giving us tips and tricks for how to get through the voice acting world for audiobooks. And then they also said, and we'll also give you guys like some studio time so that then you can record audiobooks if you want. So that's how I managed to get my audiobook done. They gave me the studio time and the engineering time as well. So that was really, really great to be able to produce that audiobook. It was just amazing, really. I'm very, very grateful for their help.
That's wonderful, Callie. Did you narrate the audiobook?
I did. So I had some help from someone I know who works with audio engineering, and they helped me to work on my diction and my dialect at the same time, because it's not just straight English. You want it to still have a Barbadian flavor, but still also to be understandable to an international market. So it actually is much harder than it might sound. If I was just reading, straight English, it would have been much easier, but you still want it to have that flavor. So it was amazing. It was good. And I really loved the process. It was very long. It was very long, but it was lots of fun in the end.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was going to ask you how long did the whole process take?
Long. Well, the good thing about this particular book was that because all of these stories were already done, it was really just to package them, format them, etc. The audiobook part was the only thing I had to start from scratch. And I spent the audiobook is about an hour and a half long. And I spent about 4 hours recording it. Right. So a lot more time recording than the actual length of it is. And then after that, we spent maybe, I want to say maybe about 20 hours editing. Yeah, it
Oh
takes a while.
wow. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yes, yes. And that's just a short book.
it's a very
So
short book.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot goes
Yeah.
in to producing an audio book of an hour, hour and a half. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because I wanted to make sure it was perfect.
oh, absolutely. And I get the bit about the Barbadian accent and the dialect and making sure that it's on point, yet transferable to a global audience so they can also enjoy the book as well. Is it something that you're likely to do again? Is this the way that you're going now in terms of producing books and also audiobooks?
Um, you know, I have said to anyone who asks, I am not sure I will torture myself like that again, but I also said that when I finished writing and self-publishing my first book. So all I have gleaned from my actions is that I'm a glutton for punishment. So I will probably say no, but then knowing me, I probably will.
Oh, no, that's funny, and I can totally relate because when you're going through it, you think to yourself, "Why am I doing this? Why am I
Hmm.
putting myself through this?" But when you see the fruits of your
Yes.
labor at the end of it,
Hmm.
and your book is published, and you can hold it in your hands. I mean, you made a big
Hmm.
fanfare out of when you published The Secrets of Cat's Brattle Village. It came in a
Hmm.
beautiful presentation box with other bits and pieces. Why did
Hmm.
you do that? I don't think you did that with the other two books.
Yeah, I didn't do that with the other two, and it was primarily because I have budgets for my book launches because, as I said before, I'm self-published. So, of course, you can't break the bank. And the reason why was because I had won all of those other great prizes. I had won a formatting prize. I had gotten help from the local cultural agency to do the audiobook. I won the book cover prize. So because of those things, I did have a little bit more the budget that I normally would have allocated to a book launch. I suddenly still had it. So I decided, you know what, this is something I always wanted to do. I always wanted like this really cool limited edition box. So now that the money's actually there to do it, I want to do it. So that was really just something that I felt really strongly. And I very much felt that art is not meant to be something for selfish reasons. And over the years, I've realized how important it is for people in the region to see and to hear themselves. And you have no idea what it meant to me for so many people to say, you know what, I've always wanted a book box, but the cost is so prohibitive, or the books aren't something that I want to read. And this is my first book box. And it felt amazing to be able to be a part of that for so many people, so many Bajans and Tahitians and Trinidad, Jamaicans, and people in the diaspora. It just meant so much to me to be able to do that. Truly,
It all looked really beautiful
thank
online. So,
you.
congratulations on the limited edition. But if we can go back a bit, you've now got three books out and you have an anthology. Why did you self-publish, and why is it that you haven't gone, for the big five, publishers that are out there and published with them?
Well, when I first started, it's funny, but I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about that being an option. I just felt like, you know what? The best way to describe it was that I almost thought of it as like a craft project or something, like just something fun to do. So I don't think I thought of it, like I said, in a serious way, which I alluded to before. I didn't plan it. I didn't put enough thought into it. I can see now at the time I've just gotten lucky, but I have been thinking about it more, and I have been getting some stuff ready to start looking for an agent. So I do want, and part of that too was also figuring out what sort of author I wanted to be, because you still have to have your genre, and I haven't really stuck to a genre very much since I've started. So yeah, all of that I've been thinking about and figuring out, and just trying to get some stuff ready so I can start looking for an agent. So yeah, that's the next step.
Yeah, it feels like a natural step because your name is already known. You're an established author in terms of how many books you have published and so on. That said, I quite like the idea that you're doing for yourself, you're self-publishing, you have the books published exactly how you want them. And the moment you go to, you're taken on by one of the big five, other authors have told me they have felt as though they've lost their voice in the midst of it
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's the big publisher that decides what the cover looks like. They
Mm-hmm.
just, in terms of their edit, they may suggest, because obviously they want the book to be as marketable as possible. And we
Mm-hmm.
forget sometimes that these big publishers
Mm-hmm.
are a business. They're juggling numerous authors, and they
Mm-hmm.
know what sells. So,
Mm-hmm.
people have commented on, when you go to the big five, you can lose your voice within all of that. But how did you find the self-publishing process, and what was the challenges?
Self-publishing, it is about six full-time jobs. So you are a writer, you are an editor, you are a publisher. Because even if you outsource these things, the reality is that you still have to check behind these people and make sure it's to your liking. You are a typesetter, you are a creative director, you are a marketer, you are a salesperson. Yeah, you have to do all of these things well, equally well. There's no point in any of that where you can say, okay, well, I'm not so good at that. I just won't do it. There's no room for that error. So that is the challenge where you have to be so amazing at so many different things, which really and truly make no sense working together because you also have to be in charge of the budget and you know what I mean? And creatives are generally known not to be people who are the best with admin. So your admin has to do really well also. So yeah, it's challenging to wear so many diverse hats as a self-published author.
Yes, I mean, I can certainly relate to that. You are your own PR, your own marketing, your own
Mhm.
social media channel, your own social media strategist.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
have to say that your page on Instagram, in particular, been following you for a while now, is beautifully maintained. Some stunning pictures. I'm not surprised you say that Barbados is your muse, because
Mm-hmm.
there are so many, inspiring aspects to it. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you do that? How do you manage it all and still maintain an international presence online?
It's not easy. And to be honest, sometimes I just have to step back a little bit. And I find have to compartmentalize. So when I'm writing, I'm writing. When I'm, publishing, I'm publishing and all the other things that come with it. So I find I can't write and publish at the same time. So I find the writing suffers a little when I have a launch to do. Sorry, it doesn't suffer a little, it just doesn't exist. So I feel
Okay.
like, yeah, I have to keep my brain attuned to one thing at a time because it can wear you out really. So that's how I do it for me. I mean, that's not the right way. I mean, it would be great to be able to, you publish and write at the same time and have something ready for the next time. But yeah, I just like to do it in pieces. I just find that works better for me.
It most certainly does. As I said, there are some stunning pictures of you online.
Thank you.
And what I've been impressed with is that whilst you're online and there are YouTube videos of different interviews that you have done and so on, people don't really know what you look like. Was that deliberate, and why?
It is deliberate because I think people are always looking for some incredibly profound answer. And the truth is, I'm just shy. I just don't do well with photos. That's just me. I like taking pictures. I truly do, which I guess a lot of people may have noticed by now because like you said, I do like pretty pictures and I take a lot of them, just not necessarily of myself. So yeah, it is deliberate, but just because I'm just shy.
Oh, bless you. But it does create some kind of mystery around you as well. You're just as mysterious as your stories that you tell as well. So, people are intrigued, to know, what does Callie Brown look like and to know a bit about her. But as I said, you're there, but not there, So I've seen lots of photos of you holding your book, being on the beach and showcasing your work. But I think it's good to take a professional distance as well.
Mhm. Thank you.
Tell us what's next then in terms of your book projects going forward.
Well, going forward, I'm actually writing a YA fantasy right now. I'm hoping to be able to finish it, but I am madly in love with this book so far. It is, I don't know, it's something that I wish was around for me to read when I was growing up. I'm just very excited about it. So that's what I'm working on. I also have a World War II romance, which I was going to give away for free last year when I had finished it, but it's a novella. But the beta readers that I gave it to, they came back and said, I love it, but and I know you want to give it to us for free, but don't give it to us for free. Make it longer, make it a full story, and we'll pay for it. I was like, well, I was trying to do a freebie. They were like, no, 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 no. Make us pay for it and just make it longer. So I have to get
Oh,
back to
wow.
that. And yeah, so the thing I found about readers is that readers really like to read. So they love their long stories. Actually, that is one of the things that I've been cussed for a lot with Cat Spraddle Village. People were like, oh my gosh, these stories were so great. Just give us more, man. We want more stories. So
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I felt like I wanted more and then it was done. I read my first fantasy book not that long ago called This
mm,
One Sky Day by Leon Ross.
mm,
And it's
mm,
also, I think, one of the longest books that I've read as well. And
mm.
fantasy, it took me into an area where I had to suspend reality and what I know. So I am looking forward to reading your young adult fantasy to see what that's
Thank
like.
you.
Is that book also based in Barbados or a place that
Yes.
resembles Barbados in some way?
Yeah, it resembles Barbados very, very much. I don't know. I mean, they say write what you know, and I guess that's just always going to be my shtick, this country and the people and the culture, they just always find their way in. So yeah, very much so.
I mean, and that's wonderful, isn't it? That's wonderful. That's the connection between all of your books. The theme that runs through
Mm,
them is the fact that you hail from Barbados and you're writing what you know about. So to see Barbados in fantasy writing is going to be very interesting indeed. You took part in your first anthology not that long ago. What is that book called, and what has been the advantage of taking part in an anthology?
The book is called Midnight Hour, and it's about a whole bunch of crimes that happen at midnight. So literally, the crimes are all very different. So some are cozy mystery, some are more, they have like a little funny edge, some are like noir type crime. So that's the great thing about it, that there's so many flavors of crime inside that book. And then too, like I said, because they're all by writers of color, you also have these cultures interwoven. So like you have my stuff, which is Caribbean, you have the Latinx people who, like they talk about churros and like, like a crime happened at this little cozy place where people speak a little Spanglish, and you have Asian stuff, and it's so great for that reason. You get so many different flavors. It's like a really amazing bookish buffet. So the advantage of being and something like that was it. I mean, obviously there are 20 people in the thing, so I got to meet these other 19 amazing writers, and so many of them actually won like Edgar Awards and that type of thing. And the book was also featured by, it got a great review for the New York Times. So you get to rub shoulders with a crowd that is more established than you. You get to have the advantage of, like, in the Caribbean we have susu, like a meet and turn type of thing. And it felt almost like that where, everybody's audience, got to meet you because, you're there too, and they already have their audience and their audience loves them. And it was just really, really great to be able to meet these people and to network in that way. And then even to learn from them, to read their stories and see how they do things. And yeah, man, it was amazing.
A lot of writers get put off writing because they think they have to reach a magic, 50,000 words or 60,000 words to be taken seriously. But I have been pushing that being part of an anthology means that you only have to commit to a smaller or shorter word count. What would you say were the advantages of taking part? How would you encourage writers to take part in anthologies?
I don't know if I want to say I would encourage anyone to do anything in particular, just because I feel like writing is such a personal thing because it is art, right? Like I just said a few minutes ago, the biggest prize I've ever won was for a 10-word story. So I really think it comes down to, and then too, some people may realize they like poetry better. I think it really comes down to someone really sitting down and just experimenting and exploring what they want to do, and then deciding, well, okay, well, this works for me or this doesn't. Because I feel like that may be the off-putting part, that people keep telling people to do things that they aren't really sure if it's going to work for them. I feel like there's room to play and explore and just be okay with what you are in the end of it.
Yeah, I think I like what you're saying because you have done it in terms of you've written a 10-word story, you've written short stories in your collection, you've also written novellas as well, and now you're doing a young adult fantasy. I think the learning here is that we shouldn't pigeonhole ourselves. We can do it all, or at least experiment and see if we like writing in different kinds of ways. So I like the way that your career hasn't been pigeonholed as crime fiction or contemporary fiction or women's fiction. You're doing a whole range of things and exploring your creativity in that way. But tell me, Callie, if people wanted to reach out and connect with you, how would they do that?
Well, I'm pretty much all over the place. I am, as you just said, on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter. I don't use Facebook as much, but every now and again, you will find me there. I'm on Threads. I also have a website, www.calliebrowning.com. And I'm reachable in all of those different ways.
It's fantastic. And your handle on Instagram is Beige and Callie, isn't it?
Yes, on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, I have kept it really, I've tried to keep that consistent. The only place where my handle is different is on TikTok, which is Callie Browning on TikTok. But otherwise, it's Beijing Callie.
And where can people get hold of your books?
Well, if they want, they can also go on, like I said, my website. That's where you can see where to find them all over, each of them. But in general, you can find them on Amazon, barnesandnobles.com. You can find them at Waterstones online. You can find them at, I think, Target and Kobo. You can find them all over the place. The audiobook is also available on Audible, sorry, Chirp, and a whole bunch of other places.
That's fantastic. So basically, where all good books are sold,
Yes,
they can
yes.
find your book. Yeah. How are you going to
Mhm.
spend the rest of the day?
I actually have my setup there. As soon as I get off with you, I'm gonna go and do some writing. I didn't do any
That's
yesterday, but yeah, today's the day.
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Caddy, thank you for spending this hour with me. I really appreciate that. And I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. It was so nice to finally have a chance to chat with you.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Callie Browning. It is competition time now. Were you listening carefully? In her book, The Vanishing Girls, where is the book set? Is it A, a children's home, B, a funeral home, or C, at Callie's home? Taking part couldn't be easier. Contact me on Instagram at Loving the Author by this Friday to win a free download of her new book, The Secrets of Cat's Bradle Village. Good luck, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.